So we're back with more puzzles. We did okay yesterday, so we're going to continue with this theme of gaining rating. Okay, so we have a nice endgame puzzle here. Looks like white is going to pick up these two pawns, so our only chance as black of winning this game would be making something happen with these pawns, and then white's hoping to blockade these somehow. So the immediate first question is, can we just support the pawn to go to h4? That might be faster than this alternative. And it looks like it will come down to some sort of pawn race because we need to accomplish our task in, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves. And it's also possible that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So white will have the option of queening on either of these two squares with roughly the same number of moves, which could matter if one of those were to come with check, for instance. So let's say we were to calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In that case, it seems possible that we queen, and then maybe white queens with check. 1, 2, 3, or if we go like 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. Actually, in that case, black should win. 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8 covers the square. So it's possible that the best result is that we both queen. So if we go 1, 1, 2, 2. As you can see, with these kinds of endgames, often the only way to really solve it is just solve it. For instance, just brute force calculation. Not really many principles to guide you here, since it's just a race. If white were to just move the bishop, it seems like we gain time. It's like this is 1, 2, 3. Alright, let's calculate better than that. 1, 2, so I just went here. Now I go here again with my king. Push my pawn. That should be good enough. So what I'm looking at here is basically, this seems like we might actually queen faster. And that other example that we saw with here, 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 takes, then we move her king, let's say to some square, and push her pawn, and push her pawn, push, 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 push. We do queen first, but then white queens with check. So that might be a touch slow. But if we go here, we might do it faster because we get to push here immediately and gain some time with this bishop having to continue to blockade because we're pushing faster than just trying to spend time eliminating that bishop. So for instance here, I'm calculating here, here, here. If just takes, we just take. And we're 2 squares away. White's at best 4 squares away, and the king is still in the way. So we'll queen first and win. So after here, 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 here. Notice that there's no sacrifice, because then we can just queen this pawn instead, and with check. Here, here. Oops. Here, here, here. Bishop moves somewhere. We move up. Takes. Threaten to make a queen. White has to come back and block that. Threaten to push our pawn to here. White has to block that. We bring our king up. We want to bring our king here. If white blocks that, then we can bring our king here instead. So at that point we have this, here, here, queen, takes, takes, here, 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 we queen in time. So to do that calculation again, because there were some variations there. Oops. 1, 2. White makes the queen as well. So maybe that's not working, because you have to account that white can make a queen at either square. So that means that we're not necessarily going to queen and block this square, and that white can choose which of these pawns maybe to give the bishop up for, so that there's some control over which square black has to queen on. So after here, 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 let's say we just step up. Then we could push this pawn. White's in trouble because they're 4 squares away from queening, we're 2, and we cover the queening square. So after here, 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 here. Did I skip a move? Here, 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 here. Then we step up. Let's say the king steps over. We push our pawn again, push this pawn, push our pawn, push this pawn, we queen. And even if white moves to queen here, we would have check, and we'd be able to block this pawn. So I think that's going to be the solution. Oh, like this. Okay. Push, and then I think push. Or the king here. Alright. And then we just go for this one. Alright, that one was moderately difficult. It took me 10 minutes to solve that. But this king move was very important. I noticed instead, if I just try to accomplish this with the pawns, eventually I'll have to make several king moves to help support one of these squares, and then I end up losing a tempo in the process. You know, I might have to make 1, 2, 3 king moves rather than just one, and then make my normal pawn moves. So somewhere in there there's an extra tempo. The target time for that was only supposed to be 1 minute. Because these take a while, maybe I'll only do 3 today. Moving on to this next one. This one seems less intensive on the pawn racing and more intensive on a weak king theme. So a couple moves come to mind. The first being knight g4, which has a checkmate threat after queen here, check, step over, rook check, pawn takes, and then queen gets to mate on h2. So this is already a very strong threat. But let's say you guard this square. Let's say by doing queen here or something. Then I have this other move, queen h5, which threatens queen h2. So knight g4 seems like a very powerful move. If either rook or queen come here after queen h5, this bishop won't be able to move to give white another square. So let's look at instead rook to d2 to guard here, and then queen h5, and then bishop moves somewhere. Let's say here. And I give check and king comes over. But in that event, still, we could just deliver mate. So, okay, and then, kind of funny for the puzzle to include this move. Does it matter? Should I take with the rook? If I take with the rook, there might be bishop here. So let's take with the queen. Although this does allow that. Okay, was it just to take with the rook? Well, I don't know what happened there. Knight, queen, rook, like that. So why is this not worth it? Because I just played queen h4, counterattack. That was careless, because I did want to do the rook, of course, because you don't want to give this up. I very shallowly looked at bishop e2 without thinking that I can just break that pin forcefully. So I faltered at the end because I didn't anticipate this move, and then on seeing it I kind of a little lax about it. So yeah, deserved to lose, what, 3 for that? It's a bit of a shame. At least it was quicker though. Okay, so this is another, let's say, pawn promotion theme. The problem is that if I just go here, the rook steps over, I make a move to promote some other pawn. Rook takes, push this pawn. I think the rook can step in front. I'm not in time. So instead, what if I just push this pawn? And then, well, if the rook were to try to stop one of the pawns, I would promote the other, and then step back, and then the rook can't catch both of them once they're here. So after a move like this, there's going to be some sort of king stepping over to stop this guy. And then if I go here, then the rook can block. If I step up, the king can come here. So if I play this move first in here, do I have anything at all? The rook guards this pawn. The king can catch this pawn. It does make you want to start with this pawn just so that the rook is forced to f1. And then maybe g5. And rook takes. But then our pawns can't, no matter which pawn steps forward, the rook blocks the other. And if we go here, then takes, and here, there's going to be rook behind our pawn, which seems problematic. I don't think we gain anything by giving up this pawn. Rook takes, step forward, king comes here to stop this pawn, and rook will stop the other. If I go here and here, so yeah, if I go here and here, here and here, then I win. But if I go here and here, and then I step here, and rook has to come here, and then I step up with this pawn, and rook takes, I step up with this pawn. In that case, it seems like I'm actually doing okay. So here, 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 here. If they don't take, then we have our 3 pawns. It's hard for the king to step close because then we can check and promote because of this pawn here. I think this is going to be the solution. And then we should do the one furthest from the king. If we do this one first, the king can step over. Okay, so that was just a straightforward calculation. But yeah, all you have to do there is see some themes with the pawn pushing to know which one to push first, and then yeah, it's just like a pawn endgame calculation. So we'll do some more. Okay, first of all, I want to take this pawn, and I also want to play this move. I imagine this is strongest. Well, okay, this is strongest per se because it's a check. And then king comes over, and then we could really go anywhere. Queen here maybe, and the threat is just to maybe come here, check, and then step over. Or just go rather here and here as checkmate, as long as the queen can't block. So if king were to come here instead, then we just have check. And when white blocks in some case, we would give mate. So this is very strong. I don't think the king can come to f1 because we just go here. So after here, here, we'd like to be able to just play here, here, and then give mate with the queen, but the king would then be covering h3. So instead, we just need to move our queen in somewhere. The only problem is that then this pawn will be hanging, potentially with check. So for instance, if we were just to bring the queen in behind our rook, then there would be check, block, and check. Now, I don't want to give perpetual. So is there a better solution after this and this? Potentially yes. I could give check here, rook check, and then check like this. That actually just looks like mate, so that's what I'm going to do. So I overlooked that at first, but yeah, just a mating pattern. But when you realize everything has to be with check because you see white's defensive resource, it kind of pops out at you even if you miss it the first time. Alright, at this point I've done 4, I may as well do the 5th. So, okay, so black's in danger and white's in danger. This rook is pinned. I don't have any theme here of taking and then giving mate. I might, however, have a theme of going here, rook takes, knight here, king up, and bishop here being mate. Is that just checkmate? Check, 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 mate. Okay. Did well on that one because we solved it rather quickly, but that was just checkmate right away. You can see that checkmate pattern just because we know that the rook can't move, but maybe is cutting off some squares. We have to be urgent. We don't have many checks. This can be taken by the rook, potentially. Yeah, this was just very forcing. This is the kind of thing that pops out at you. Check, and yeah. It's just a one-way street. So hopefully this was instructive. Although we did mess up the end of one of our puzzles, we're getting a nice boost to our rating. So we're very close to 2850. So it makes sense then to make 2900 the next goal. So we'll keep onwards and forwards in future days.